So yesterday, as many of you will be aware, this man here, Iqbal Mohamed, one of the pro-Palestine, pro-Gaza, pro-Hamas members of parliament that were elected on sectarian lines because of what's going on in Israel, pushing them to the front of many minds of Muslim voters. And the Labour Party suffered as a consequence, and these guys got through. Jeremy Corbyn is also part of their group as an independent MP since he was suspended from the Labour Party. But they're talking about, in the new year, forming a new political party as a group of them. And it will be a group that gives succour and support to, I think, a really obnoxious form of religious sectarianism of the kind that this country hasn't seen before. So things are going to get really quite nasty and vicious indeed. And when you've got an MP from this group standing up and speaking out in favour of cousin marriage and defending it, despite the burden it places on the NHS and the burden it places on the child that's born out of such wedlock, you start to get into, I think, really dangerous territory. So this is the sectarianism that's going to be more and more and more evident at an alarming rate as the Muslim population in Britain grows. And it has consequences in, as I mentioned, healthcare, with the allocation of close relative marriage neonatal nurses. So close relative marriage, i.e. marrying your cousin, close relative, your first cousin. And it says that they have the exciting opportunity for an experienced neonatal nurse to join the trust, which I believe is in, it's Firmly Health. So is that Slough? Is that Slough Way? Anyway, it says here, the neonatal unit at Wexham Park Hospital is caring for these vulnerable babies. And they need people with high quality evidence-based, don't marry your cousin, that's the evidence, and better outcomes for their families. So we're actually recruiting on the lines that this man was arguing yesterday, because we do have such a big problem with over 50% of British Pakistanis in Britain marrying their cousin, for example, and therefore spreading the consequences of such a marriage. And I watched this yesterday, and it really got me thinking on what kind of country Britain is going to be in the years to come, with these independent groups becoming, whatever their political party calls itself, becoming more powerful, and what kind of country we'll look like at the end of it. And this interaction, I think, was really quite telling.
Islamic experts say that Islam neither prohibits nor encourages cousin marriages. Some argue, though, that if change is to happen, community and religious leaders need to get on board. But Maulana Munawwar Hussain, a religious scholar in the West Midlands, does not accept that there is a problem.
30% of children with rare diseases are from British Pakistani families. What's your response to that kind of statistic?
I will ask, what is the percentage in other communities?
But Maulana, doctors are saying that there's a link. Families who are suffering from this, who are first cousins who are British Pakistani Muslim, are saying there's a link. The specialists in this area are saying that there's a link. Why are you not accepting that?
Well, I don't have any knowledge in that regard.
Look, I have a whole, reams and reams of evidence here, scientific evidence that proves that there's a link, and you're still denying it.
No, what I said, I don't have knowledge on that.
Well, if I gave you the evidence and you looked through it and you felt that it was convincing, what would you do about it?
I don't think I will be able to do anything on that regard. Islamically, I do not see any problem getting married to the first cousin.
Maybe not Islamically, but medically there's a problem.
Why we are talking about only the Muslims getting married to the first cousin, then if we find the same problem in other communities also, but then it is equal. So it is not because of the first cousin marriage. So it is a normal case.
It is because of the first cousin marriage. It's just not necessarily because they're Pakistani or they're white or they're black or they're any other ethnic group. It's because they're first cousins, and that is a much higher occurrence of that happening within the Pakistani community because there's a tradition of marrying first cousins.
Okay, well, as I said early on, I don't have any research on that topic, so I won't be able to say anything on that.
Well, if I give you this research and you look through it...
So, well, I wouldn't mind looking through it.
And if you were convinced by it, what would you do about it?
I will decide after when I am convinced.
We sent him the medical papers and haven't heard back yet.
It's a bit hard actually to tackle the issues of these children. I don't know what is their future, how they will live even if we are not here.
In part 3, we ask if children like the Akhtars are paying the price of political correctness because health workers and politicians are afraid of being labelled racist.
So healthcare and politicians afraid of being labelled racist, and I've just shown you this advert in the NHS hiring close relative nurses there, marriage nurses, and the fact of the matter is, like Younes, if you marry all of these things together, the rise of sectarianism in Britain, the NHS pandering to it, because these kids are being born through first cousin marriages and coming out with all kinds of problems, and then needing personal independence payments through the disability welfare system, and of course healthcare for the rest of their lives, reliant entirely on British taxpayers. All of these things have major consequences.
Yes, exactly. So basically, first of all, she lied in the beginning. Mohammed did prohibit first cousin marriages in Islam. As a matter of fact, in some communities, it's encouraged. And the reason for that is that it's something called the Sayyid. And Sayyid is someone that's related to Mohammed. So basically, first cousin marriages were encouraged in Islam because they could say, like, for example, Khamenei, the supreme leader of Iran, is Sayyid Ali Khamenei. And Sayyid means he's related to Mohammed. And so was Khamenei. Right, so the reason why they want to keep the genetic pool close together is because people wanted to be descendants of Muhammad. That's point number one. Point number two is that apparently 50% of all Pakistani couples, they're like inbred, and not only that causes a genetic defect that we might become whatever, autistic or whatever, but also you end up having lower IQ. So you might not have any outwardly illnesses, but in reality your cognition is actually lower than an average person, which obviously leads to a whole society of people not being to achieve their top goal because their IQ is like ranges between 85 to 95, which is below average because the average IQ is 100. And lastly, I just think it's very almost primitive because it's almost like it's a normal thing in Pakistan, especially for you to marry your first cousin. And for me, that's incest. I'm sorry. For me, that's no different than maybe marrying your sister or your mom, because that is sister, because that's still your family. That is still your blood. And I think it should be outlawed. I really think in this country, we should outlaw marrying your first cousin.
Yeah, because Chloe Nora says we're reduced to discussing topics that are against our natural instinct here. We're reduced to discussing these topics and the consequences in Britain, because of the fact that cultures aren't assimilating, that British Pakistanis are obviously not in marrying their first cousins and are either seeking to do it in Pakistan or, attempting to do it here.
I mean, I am genuinely shocked that it is even a debate as to whether cousins should be able to marry or not. I mean, I honestly, I didn't even realise that it was legal. I just sort of presumed that it was illegal. So I was shocked to see an MP standing up talking about how great it is for family bonds and whatnot. I mean, I cannot believe in 2024 we've had an MP standing up and talking about how great shagging your cousin is. I mean, what the actual heck is absolutely disgusting, even before you even think about the the impact money wise on the NHS, and it's child abuse to to do that, and that child to have to live with a horrible defect, when you actually could have just married someone. There are 8 billion people on this planet to choose from, and you had to pick your cousin. You couldn't find anyone else who wants to sleep with you and marry you. I don't believe that, right?
Yeah.
I agree.
Gross. It's gross.
Can I make a comment about that as well? Can I just quickly make a comment about what Chloe said? The reason why they marry their first cousins is because men and women are not allowed to speak to each other in Islam. And if you want to marry someone, you have to go to her father and ask for permission. And that's why they can't really go on dates. So the only person they know in their family is their cousin. So they go to the father and oh, can I marry your daughter, please? And that's why this Islamic thinking holds back a whole nation and whole society, because you're not allowed, because you're not mahram. You're not allowed to speak to women you're not mahram with. Yeah.
Alex, the point that was raised there by Chloe, which has totally gone out of my head, which is very, very annoying. But the point that I was going to make there was one around whether I've totally forgotten it. Alex, what are your thoughts?
I've said this yesterday on GB News, and I'll say it again. This issue was never a prevalent problem in Britain. It's not a British cultural phenomenon to marry your first cousins. Yes, historically speaking, some of the upper classes bred within their families in order to maintain land, alliances, inheritances, those sorts of things. It was common amongst the aristocracy, for example. We saw it with the Habsburgs. That's a very, 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 very small amount. Even back in those days, it wasn't massively prevalent. In fact, the church, through multiple centuries, actually said this was wrong. So it's not a British problem. It's not a native British problem. We just got to say it as it is, because we keep on, as that documentary said, we keep sugarcoating these things so people don't get called racist. It's crazy.
Would they do that documentary today? Would they make that today?
No, they bloody wouldn't. No, they absolutely would not. The same reason why the BBC won't talk about it. Now, the reality is, why we're talking about this conversation is very simple. We have had mass immigration, legal and illegal, into this country in the millions. Many of those people are coming from cultures like Pakistan, where 55-60% of marriages in those communities can be with their first cousin. That's the reality. We are having to talk about this in 2024, a non-native British issue, because the medical consequences are becoming so severe for our National Health Service that we are having to talk about it on a country-wide scale. It is absolutely shocking. In fact, some of the panelists with me last night, 2 ex-ministers, one from the Tories, one from Labour, both said, well, we need to be educating people, we need to spend money on education. No, we don't. We shouldn't be in this position. If it weren't for those 2 parties who stitched this country up and sold us out as a dumping ground for everyone, this, that, and the other, and never thought about assimilation into our society, we wouldn't be talking about spending money on education. That's it. That is the crux of the problem. And until we start resolving that and start talking about that with some confidence, we are going to constantly be having to deal with these weird cultural phenomena that are inherently un-British, leaving British people scratching their heads going, why is there a debate about this in Parliament in Britain in 2024? It won't be the last one. It won't be the last one.
No, these things are going to get worse. As I say, religious sectarianism, it's on the ballot box and it will be fought. Yep. It will be fought. You will be voting for a party that you think represents your values along religious lines. And the question there around cousins and why they're doing it, well, if they're doing it for religious reasons after being told the evidence is there, I'm sorry, I'm going to say it as it is. You're a selfish bastard if you are going to do that and bring a child into this world in pain and suffering knowingly. It's sick. It's twisted. Because you think that some form of the Quran or whatever else has given you the say-so to do it, even though Younes says it hasn't done that. I mean, there's a problem with British Pakistanis in Britain. There really is. There is a clear problem with assimilation and actually getting out some of these medieval ideas, and that's what they are, medieval ideas.
Yeah.
Darren, if
Um,
I just really want to tell people the data on this, because I think it's really important people understand the data, because they're going to get they're going to get the same far lefties going, this has been a problem in Britain, this is still a problem today. It's not. It's 0.1% of non-immigrant communities in Britain. 0.1% marry their first cousins. As I said, in some parts of the Pakistani community, it's 55 to 60%. Just to have the facts super clear. Sorry, over to you, Younes.
Yeah, no.
Can I
that's brilliant.
just one last point I want to make about this, because look, I don't want to be known for a guy that always criticizes Islam. I like to criticize bad ideas. I can criticize
Newsflash.
communism.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I can criticize communism. I like to criticize bad ideas, and I don't want to keep going on about Islam over and over and over again. But Islam is a bad idea overall. Why do they marry their first cousins? Is because they put such a barrier between men and women in Islam. So men and women can't openly go out on dates. They can't even have like sex outside of marriage. They have to go to an imam, and they have to sign a contract, and she needs to get given a mehriye, which is like some sort of a payment she can keep after the marriage if they get divorced. Women can't divorce their husbands, whereas husbands can divorce their wives. All these different things. And if you want to marry a girl, you're not allowed to go and speak to her. You have to go and speak to her father. And whose father do you know? Your first cousin. And that's why it happens. So it's not just because of the fact they want to go and marry their first cousin. It's because they have all these barriers in front of them that doesn't allow them to go into the dating market, go and find a partner and live a happy life. And that's why it's a brain virus. And that's why I speak about it. Because actually what I'm trying to do is to free the Muslims. I want to free the Muslims from this brain virus that they have in their head. Like, let go of this ideology. It's holding you back. It's holding your community back. It's holding your nation back.
A final word, because it's off the back of what Younes was just saying. A very senior ex-Labour politician, very senior, said to me privately, so I can't name them, said that the issue here, on the back of what Younes is saying, is that Islam has not modernized. It is regressive. It is a regressive religion. And there's something to be said about that. When you look at many other faiths around the world, they have modernized with society. They have modernized upwards. The church is one of them. Some say the church has modernized too much. But I think when you look at what the comparative unmodernized religions have done, that is where it leads.
Still watching? Well, I've got a quick ask for you. Recent UK, we're fighting the woke brigade and inspiring young Brits, but we need your help to go bigger. We're hosting a fundraiser and would love you to sign up and share the link on the big day. It's easy, it makes a massive impact, and there are prizes for top fundraisers. Click the Google form in the description to join us. Cheers very much. Let's keep going together.